Hello everyone, it's Jen for Heffy Doodle. Today I'm going to share with you how I created this little cage for my critters using the Hello Squeakheart stamp set. There's some cute little critters and you can add tails to them if you like, some really adorable sentiments. And for my cage, I'm also going to bring in the little dish here from Rescue Dogs to add for a little food bowl for my hamsters. So we're going to get started with the coloring. As always, I have the colors listed from darkest to lightest on the left-hand side of the screen. I'm going to be doing a 3-color combination for my little accessories here. I'm using BG49 as the darkest, BG45 as my midtone, and then BG11 as the lightest. I decided to keep all of the little accessories the same color palette. And this is one of my favorite color combinations. Now, I didn't realize when I started coloring that my BG11 was going dry. So you're going to see here, I'm doing a little bit of tip to tip just to help that blend, but I don't have a smooth blend here. I'm not going to give up though. I'm going to keep going and see if I can get a little bit of ink out of that color. But I do have to bring in a different marker and I'll show you how I fix that instead of starting over. So I'm going to add some of this aqua color to the bottom of the water bottle and also for the food dish. And then once I get those colored up, you can see I'm really struggling here trying to get ink. But once I get those colored, I'm going to work on the little hamster wheel. And I just wanted to show you where I'm adding the darkest colors. So because this is a round object on the top, you want to make sure your darkest colors are to the sides and that will make it look circular. I'm also going to add some of that darkest marker to the little lines on the hamster wheel. And then I'll blend that out with my midtone, just leaving a very small area for that highlight color. And I do take both ends of my caps off here, trying to get that ink out, but it was absolutely dry and just wasn't blending at all. So I'm going to switch out my BG11 for my BG10, and you can see here this one's nice and juicy and you see the difference in the blending. So if you're having trouble with your blending, make sure that your markers are nice and filled or it can give you a bit of trouble. I just needed to darken up the top of the wheel there a little bit, and now I'm going to color the heart in pink using R83, RV11, and R00. For the water bottle, I want the top to look clear, so I'm just bringing in a couple of my C markers, the C3 and the C1. I will blend that out with the 0, and then I'm going to add a little bit of B000 to make it look like there is water inside. And for the bottom of that, I wanted it to be steel, so I colored that in C3. For the food, I'm using E33, E53, and E51. And now we can go on and color our little hamsters. So for this first one, I'm going to use a yellow gold color, and I'm going to have little patches on him with some white. So I'm using YR23, YR24, and Y21. This color combination blends really nicely. So we'll get the areas that I want to be that golden yellow, and then I'm going to work on the white. So I'm using W1, W00, and then I'll blend that a little bit with the colorless blender, which is the 0. For all of their cheeks, I'm using E04. When it's on the white area, I will blend that out with the colorless blender. For our second little hamster, I want him to be black and white. I had a black and white hamster when I was growing up. Her name was Smokey. And so I wanted to color her, this little hamster to look like her. So I'm using W7, W5, W3 for the darkest areas. Again, I'm going to have this little hamster have some white patches. So that's where I'll bring in the W1 and then blend that out with the colorless blender. Gonna add the little cheeks again and then blend that out as well. And then you get a nice smooth blend between those darker colors and the white patches. For our third little hamster, I'm going to do him a gray color. I'm using W5, W3, and W1. So just adding those darkest shades to the bottoms of the ear, his legs, and then under his belly and up the side of him by his two little feet sticking out. This little guy is so cute. I'm also going to bring in a second one of this image colored in the yellow, golden, brown, and white color combination for my little hamster wheel. So in total, I will have 5 hamsters in my little hamster cage. This final one, I'm using light browns, and I used E35, E34, and E31. I just wanted to have them all a little bit different, and I really like how all of the images look together. They created a really cute scene. So once I get this blended out, I'll add the blush again to the cheeks. I won't use my colorless blender. And we're ready to start creating the hamster cage. So I have all my cardstock out. I just grabbed some pink cardstock from my stash. I'm using the hearts border from the lovely Little Borders die set. I just wanted to add a really pretty accent to the bottom of my cage here. I used some Nina Desert Storm cardstock to create the little inside of my hamster cage, and then I cut out some pink cardstock using one of the skinny rectangle frames or borders that are from the newest release, and that's what I'm going to use for the top part of my cage. So I'm just bringing in some pattern paper, and I'm going to go ahead and corner around the bottom of the cage here. I just thought that gave a fun little accent to it. I am going to back the bottom part here with some of the pattern paper that I'm also using for behind the cage. And I just thought this was a fun way to add a little bit of detail to the cage. So once I get that in place, I can go ahead and just make sure that that's going to work. And I'm going to bring in a transparency sheet here. So this is very similar to acetate, but it is much more affordable. So I will have this linked down below in case you're interested. It is pennies compared to purchasing acetate. I'll have all the other products linked in the description box as well in case you want to see anything more up close. So I've left the backing of the transparency on there. I just find it's easier to work with, and it creates less static, and your transparency won't get dirty. So I just added some glue there. I did let that stamp block sit on there for quite a while just to ensure that it was nice and adhered to that transparency sheet. And then I just need to cut around my edges here. And this will be the top part of my little cage. So I can go ahead and remove the protective sheet on the back of that once I have this final side trimmed up, and just making sure that I have it good and adhered, and then you can see it fits nicely over that back panel. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add my little insert here. So this I cut out with the Slopey Joe border dies. I'm not going to put it right down to the bottom. I know the bottom of the cage will cover a bit of that, so I'm not too worried about having it to the bottom. I just want to make sure that there's lots of that brown showing, and I did need to trim up a bit of the bottom of the cage here. I didn't quite have it cut perfectly. So now I'm just making sure that everything's going to fit, and then we can work on adding our little elements to the inside. So I'm just going to start placing some of the little things that we colored here to the inside, just making sure there's enough room. I'm going to bring the transparency here. You can see it is staticky and the images stick, but I want that water bottle to be as close to the cage frame as possible on that left-hand side. So once I sort of get the placement of these, then I can go ahead and adhere them down. I'm just going to use my art glitter glue. This is my favorite liquid adhesive. I won't be popping anything up inside the cage today just because I wanted it to be flat because I'm going to overlay that transparency piece. So again, just making sure my placement is okay and that they're all inside the little frame. And then I can go ahead and adhere these down. So I'm going to have the little gray mouse peeking out from the little house. and his little buddy to the right hand side here. Once I get those in place, I'll work on the little hamster wheel, which is so cute. And this is where I'm going to bring in the second image that I colored in that yellow, gold, and white color combination. And I'm going to have him running on the little hamster wheel. I'm going to get that water bottle in place. And I'm going to have the little brown hamster underneath it looking like he's having a little drink. And then finally, I will go ahead and add my little black and white hamster here in front of the food dish. I just wanted to make sure that they all had something that they were doing, and so that's why I decided to bring in the little food bowl. So again, I let the stamp block sit on top of the images for a little bit, and now I'm bringing out my scrapbook.com foam strips. These things are amazing. They fit perfectly behind these skinny frames, which is amazing. So if you want to make shaker cards with this, you could. They are quite skinny, the rectangle frames, hence the name of them, but they really add some fun elements to your cards. And if you don't want to cut up foam tape, these foam strips are amazing. So now I'm going to go ahead and add my frame here to my scene panel. Just needed to turn that sideways to ensure that I got that lined up properly. I am going to add the stamp block again. I just wanted to make sure that this card was good and sturdy and that everything was well adhered together. And I can go ahead and add the bottom of my little cage here. So again, I'm going to flip that over just to ensure that the bottom of the cage sticks to that transparency. I did hold that down for a little bit. And now I'm going to go ahead and add some of those foam strips so that it is level with the rest of the card. Now we can move on to creating the background. I'm just going to grab a piece of aqua cardstock here from an older paper pad by MFT. This is called Sweet Celebrations. I thought this just went really well with the aqua color that I colored for my little accessories for my hamsters. I decided to back this onto a card panel. This card is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I just wanted it to be a little bit more sturdy because the hamster cage is a little bit heavier with all of those layers. I'm going to go ahead and adhere this centered to my card. I don't get it centered the first time, so luckily I didn't press down, so I can just pull that up and try again. And this time I think I did a better job getting it centered. Again, bringing back my stamp block. I think my stamp block was my best friend in this card tutorial today. So as I was looking at the card, I decided that I actually wanted to add the little hearts that were die cut out of the border back into it. So you could use the pattern paper, but I thought it took away from the appearance of it looking like an actual cage. So I just adhered those back in. I was using my jewel picker. Those are tiny, those little hearts. So it was just helpful to get those in place where I wanted them. So now I'm going to stamp my sentiment, and this is my first try with this sentiment. I thought that I wanted to have it on the hamster cage itself, and so I'm going to go ahead and stamp this, but it was a little bit uneven because of the multiple layers of the cardstock as opposed to that bottom final foam strip that I added. So I didn't get a great impression. So I'm going to change this out. At this point, I thought I was going to leave it. So I'm going to finish creating the card, and I'm going to add this to my card base. And then for the little hearts, I'm going to bring in my Nouveau drops. These are the Nouveau glaze. It's just like a glossy accents. My bottle was a little clogged, so I just needed to unclog that. And I'm going to put this on top of all the little hearts. So then I turned the cameras off and I let that dry a little bit, and I was looking at the card and I really didn't like how the sentiment how it's stamped. And the sentiment reads, "Have a really great day," which just cracks me up. So I decided to fix it, and I'm going to stamp it on some white cardstock instead. I'm just going to stamp that a couple times, and then I'm going to pull out my guillotine trimmer. This is by Tonic and Tim Holtz. I love this thing. It cuts so nicely, and this was definitely one of those purchases I got later in my crafty journey, but one that I'm so happy I invested in. So I'm just going to trim off the sides here. I want it to be fairly thin, and so I do decide to cut a little bit more off the bottom here as well. So I wasn't quite sure if this was going to look better, but I wanted to try it. So I'm just going to have a look, and I do like the white. I think it picks up nicely with the white in the pattern paper that I used as the background of the cage. So I'm just going to snip that one side on a diagonal, and then I can go ahead and adhere this to the bottom of the cage. And I actually think this looks better too, because the bottom of my cage was not completely straight. And so this really balances it out, and you can't tell that that one side was a little bit different size than the left hand. I'm just going to trim this up and take a look at that, and I do really like this better. So let me know if you think that was a good save or not. Here is the color map with all the colors for this card today. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you have a fabulous day. Here's a couple more videos for you, and I look forward to seeing you really soon. Take care, everybody. Bye.